right, before we do anything else, let's get team news from Hull then. Our reporter this evening with that team news is Sam Avery. Evening, Sam.
Yeah, evening, Luke. 2 changes for the Hornets from the side that drew 0-0 against Queen's Park Rangers a week and a half ago. Of course, their game at the weekend at Cardiff was postponed because of the weather and Storm Darragh. So 11 days since the Hornets were last in action. 2 changes from that draw that see Jeremy Ngakia and Tom Ince come into the side. Musa Sissoko and Ryan Andrews both drop to the bench. So for the Hornets, it's Backman in goal. Back 3 of Pollock, Sierralta and Porteous. Left wing back Larucci. On the right is Ngakia, Loser and Kayembe in midfield, with Chakmadadze and Ince supporting striker Vakun Bayo. On the bench for the Hornets, Bond, Vata, Duomo, Sissoko, Doumbia, Morris, Barr, Ebisele and Andrews as they look to continue a decent run of form. Actually, Watford, 1 defeat from their last 7 going into this game against a Hull City side who have new head coach Ruben Selles taking charge of his first game, appointed having been Reading manager and hoping to turn around the Tigers' fortunes because they're 11 games without victory. Out of those 11, they've lost 8 and scored just 5 goals. They're in really poor form and sit bottom of the Championship, hoping to avoid a 7th straight defeat. They'll be hoping for a new manager bounce this evening. It's Hull City against Watford.
Two very different sides here this evening, and we're going to hear a little bit later on about the manager bounce. You mentioned the manager bounce, and Hull will be hoping beyond hope that they can have some kind of bounce. I mean, it hasn't happened so far, but an opportunity for him to get their season back on track, because they are heading one way at the moment.
Yeah, bottom of the Championship, and there's been a real sort of fanfare. If you have been sort of keeping an eye on sort of Hull City in the last sort of few days on their website, and even leaving the bypass coming into the city today, there was a huge billboard welcoming Ruben Selles as Hull City manager. So there's a real sort of fanfare around his appointment, and with good reason as well, because they are struggling so much. They're in a torrid run of form, 6 straight defeats for Hull City. So they'll be very keen to get that right this evening. He was here on Saturday, but watching from the stands, so he's seen what Hull City are like, but it's his first game in charge today, and by all accounts they actually played quite well on Saturday. They were really unlucky. They lost 1-0 against Blackburn. It was an own goal from McLaughlin, the centre-back, that separated the sides, but Hull actually battered Blackburn, had so many chances, and probably should have won the game. So I think they're in a forced position, Hull City. I mean, certainly when you think last season they finished 7th, they just about missed out on the playoffs. Hull, then they controversially got rid of their manager Liam Rossinia, appointed Tim Volter. That didn't go to plan. He's now gone, so they've appointed Ruben Selles. But I think they're in a false position, Hull City. Actually, they've got some really good technical players here, and they'll be hoping that the appointment of Ruben Selles can get them up the table where they probably should be.
Yeah, I tell you what, Derek, I was listening to Sam reading through the team news and the bench as well. And the first thing and I think for the first time this season, and I don't know whether that's because players are now back or whether this just seems the balance seems a little bit better. But I thought to myself, Watford have got a really good team. I'm just looking at where they're at. Porteous, Sierralta, Pollock, Ngakia, Loser, Ince, Larucci, Kayembe, Bayo, Chakmadadze. I mean, there's some skill in there. There's some creativity in there. There's some power in there. Defensively, maybe need to just tighten up there a little bit. And then you add that that bench that they've got this evening with the likes of Barr and Sissoko, and they've got a good squad. They've got every chance of doing something this season if they can just keep it together and stay as injury-free as possible.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, the players coming back obviously helps. They've had a few injuries. I mean, Tom Deli-Bashiru, I think he's still quite a way out, so that midfield area they might look to strengthen maybe in January. Yeah, it is a strong squad, but like any squad, it always goes back to results. It always goes to, if you're picking up results, and that confidence then grows. So that home record of Watford's, where they are unbeaten, that's built up a real confidence in the whole group. So that helps. Results always help. These players, I could use Luton as an example. I mean, they done well, got in the Premier League, and then they nearly stayed in the Premier League. They haven't changed too many of them players, but look at them this season, and that to me is a confidence thing. So Yeah, he's got a good squad here. There's confidence at the moment because they're doing well in the league. I like the balance of the squad, which I kind of think you were getting to.
Yeah.
The age of a squad. When you look at a squad, you've got to look at the age. You've got youngsters in there because you need energy, you need legs. You've got experience in there. And I think Watford and I think Tom Cleverley has been thorough on this to cover all them sort of bases. Then have you got creativity? Then have you got power and pace? So I think like what you're saying there, Luke, you know, Sissoko, powerful player, he's on the bench tonight. Barr, powerful player on the bench. Ince, creative player. Loser, creative player. You know, the balance is really good from young and old, and from creative players and from strong, powerful players. So yeah, I really like the balance of this squad.
I think the other thing as well, I'm not sure that we'd have been saying and talking about how impressive the squad is tonight last season. I think there are probably 3 or 4 players that have really come on leaps and bounds over the last maybe 6 to 8 months. I mean, you think Chuck Vadadza, for example, wasn't the player last season that he is this season.
Absolutely.
Imran Louza seems to have improved over the last few weeks. I think this team last season we probably wouldn't be saying is a really impressive team.
Pollock's another one.
But I think Tom Cleverley,
Pollock was another one.
Exactly. Yeah, another great shout. I think Cleverley has improved this team to such a degree that with a similar team to last season, all of a sudden it looks a lot stronger. And I think that goes down to Tom Cleverley and how he's worked with these players and how he's improved them.
Well, he was their number one target, was Ruben Sellers, Sam, when they sacked the former manager. And he's very well thought of in the game. And I've heard interviews with players who have worked with him saying he's got everything. He's got the ability to communicate with authority, but also put an arm around players and make them understand what he wants. He was very popular at Southampton with the players, but obviously it didn't pan out there. He's highly recommended by a lot of people.
Yeah, I think he's a fantastic coach, isn't he? First and foremost, and as part of that, man management is massive these days. I think before he was Southampton head coach, he was assistant to both Nathan Jones and Hasenhüttl, and that's where a lot of those plaudits came from.
Yeah.
And then the job he did at Reading was phenomenal. We spoke a little bit about it on Saturday before Reading played Wickham, and he'd obviously just departed Reading. But with everything that happened at Reading, we spoke on Saturday a bit about the ownership and Dai Young, and there's so many problems behind the scenes at Reading, and yet Ruben Sellers was able to navigate through all of that and turn a relegation threatened side into a playoff team over the course of about a year. So the job he did at Reading was absolutely phenomenal, and that's exactly why he was top of Hull City's list in terms of managerial replacements for Tim Volter, and why he's here today, and it's a celebrated appointment, and I'm sure he'll do a decent job. Here is Kamara inside the box for Hull City, low ball across the face, and it's diverted in via a deflection. Hull City open the scoring, and it's the substitute Chris Padilla who's claiming it. It was Kamara's ball into the box, took a deflection, broke to Padilla. His shot also took a deflection, diverting past Backman. It's a scrappy goal, a late opening goal for Hull City, who lead by a goal to nil. Barr takes it on the turn, Quadway Barr does well to spin away from his man and drive forward here. Quadway Barr picks up the pace, he's into the penalty area. Barr to the byline he goes, he cuts it back. Vata arriving and scoring, and Watford are level, and it's a first Hornets goal for the 19-year-old Rocco Vata. It was all about the pace and the direct play of Quadway Barr. Picked up the ball, just drove forward to the byline, cut it back, and Rocco Vata finishes. It's 1-1.